to thank everybody for your cooperation and flexibility, because sometimes with so many people and so many events, we have to make program changes, and everyone has been very understanding. Thank you very much. This evening we will have our cultural, maybe I should begin from the beginning. Anyway, our cultural presentation this evening will be Dr. Sham. No? He will not be able to do it. Okay. This evening, our cultural presentation will be video presentations. We have several short videos scheduled. If anyone else has brought videos for screening, please let us know. Is Sobumvi here? Okay. This evening's chanting will be held at 5 o'clock, and the nuns of the Tibetan tradition, who come from many countries, will be leading the chanting at 5 o'clock. If our chanting ends early, we will begin our cultural presentation immediately. For example, we have cultural presentation at 6 o'clock, the cultural presentation at 5:30. So if you leave, you may miss it. So because otherwise the program will have a gap and we lose people. If anyone else has cultural performances that they would like to do, songs or dances or storytelling, please see me. We would be very happy to have you join in and share your culture in a cultural presentation. So please talk with me about that. As I mentioned yesterday,
presentation from the women of South Asia. There are 3 speakers this morning. Venerable Barua is not attending this morning, and this is why we have another speaker. But we will start according to the program with Venerable Kusuma from Sri Lanka. She is 60 years old, and she comes from a Buddhist background, from a Buddhist family, and was exposed to Buddhism from her childhood. And she is the first fully ordained bhikkhuni from Sri Lanka in the Theravada tradition. She got her ordination last year in December in Sarnath, and she is still living in Sarnath these days. She has a first graded in Buddhism, Pali and English, and post-graded in Buddhism, and she was teaching for 20 years in Sri Lanka. She has written 2 books which are still waiting to be published. So the first is a comprehensive sociological study of nuns in Sri Lanka, which she had been starting 15 years ago. And the second is an analysis of the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha, from which she has excerpted the speech which she is presenting now. Thank you. Please.
It is a great privilege for me to speak to you this morning. I want to place before you some obvious inaccuracies in Buddhist men's and women's history. It is a controversial topic, not only in Sri Lanka but all over the world. I've been studying this subject for about 5 years, and this is a short resolution for an introduction. My title is Inaccuracies in Buddhist Nuns and Women's History.
But I will be dealing only with the inaccuracies of the history of bhikkhunis. I hope you will pardon me, as now I have become a bhikkhuni, and I am both woman and bhikkhuni. The Buddha instituted the fourfold society consisting of bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, laymen, and laywomen. Thus we can glean data from the very inception of the bhikkhunis from authentic sources such as the Vinaya Pitaka. The Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Vinaya has been carefully edited by Oldenburg for the Pali Text Society in 1879, according to Horner. According to these texts and commentaries, there was great admiration and respect for the Sangha, as spiritual progress was possible mostly for those without the shackles of household life. The goal of brahmacharya, celibacy, was upheld as good, divine, holy, and the Brahma life. Incidentally, the study of the life of bhikkhunis has become more important today as more and more educated women are awakening to the responsibility of searching for solutions to present-day ills. Celibacy for women needs to be respected today even more than it was in the days of the Buddha. The Buddha laid down 311 rules of discipline for bhikkhunis. And if I may add, the entire Buddhist philosophy, the way of life, is discipline with a to achieve mental tranquility and wisdom and help to reach the goal of Nibbana in this very life. As a disciple, this is the Theravada view. It is ironical that though the Patimokkha rules are carefully preserved in the Theravada tradition, there are no bhikkhunis to practice them. The bhikkhuni order was lost nearly 1,000 years ago, and no attempt has been made even to study these rules for centuries, are not even opened. But I have good news for you. Exactly 1 year ago, on December 8, 1996, 10 Sri Lankan women became ordained as bhikkhunis in Sarnath, Varanasi, the holy Isipatana in India, where the Buddha delivered his first sermon. I must introduce myself as one of these 10 who are now not only studying and practicing Vinaya rules, but are also studying Pali, the language, and the suttas. With this brief preamble, I shall now speak about some obvious inaccuracies as recorded in the canon, particularly the Chulavagga about bhikkhunis. Chulavagga and commentary Samantapasadika. Chulavagga and Samantapasadika both refer to the ordination procedure of the first bhikkhuni, Mahapajapati Gotami. The acceptance of 8 Garudhammas constituted her ordination. The Buddha is said to have proclaimed, "If you, Gotami, undertake the acceptance of these 8 Garudhammas, that itself will be your ordination." Then Mahaprajapati said that she did and accepted the Garudhammas most respectfully. Just as a young woman fond of adornment of the body, having bathed, decks her head with upul flowers and saman flowers, so do I accept the 8 Garudhammas as the condition for my ordination. Having said such things and having accepted Garudharmas, she immediately after the ordination questions the Buddha how the other Sakyan women should be ordained. And the Buddha replies, I allow you, O monks, to ordain the bhikkhunis. And so the monks ordained them. This makes it clear that only Mahapajapati accepted the Garudhammas for ordination. Now, for your information, I like to add that Chulavagga was compiled over 100 years after the demise of the Buddha. And this Chulavagga is the only reference we have regarding the ordination of the first bhikkhunis. So you must listen carefully how the Chulavagga describes this very important issue. Chulavagga records an interesting incident that occurred immediately after the ordination of the 500 Sakyan women by bhikkhus. There were no bhikkhunis, so dual ordination was not possible because there were no bhikkhunis in the world. These are the first bhikkhunis, so they were ordained only by bhikkhus. They went before Mahapajapati and said, "Lady, you are unordained. We have been ordained in accordance with the Buddha's instructions." This statement further makes it clear that the monks ordained the Sakyan women and Mahapajapati did not receive ordination from monks, and she became perturbed. This is what I cannot understand. The inaccuracy that arises here is the question of why Mahapajapati did not claim that she had already been ordained by accepting the Garudhammas. She goes before Venerable Ananda once again and informs the Buddha that she is unordained. Whereupon, for the second time, the Buddha proclaims, "You, Gautami, have been ordained due to the acceptance of the Garudharmas." Many questions can be raised at this stage. Why did the Sakyan women not know about the Garudharma ordination? Why did they say, "Lady, you are unordained"? Why was Mahapajapati doubtful about her Garudharma ordination? Why did only Mahapajapati and not the others have to accept Garudhammas? Did the Buddha proclaim Garudharma to a laywoman? Mahapajapati was not ordained. This was before her ordination. Vinaya rules are laid down only to bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and not to lay women. And maybe you can find many more other questions also. Thus, the acceptance of Garudhammas raises doubts in the manner of its pronouncement. Obeisance to elders of the order. Another incident that occurred also raises doubts. Immediately after the ordination of Mahapajapati, she approaches the Buddha through Venerable Ananda and says, "I request one privilege from the Buddha." Is it possible to respect bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, such as by standing up to greet, worshipping with clasped hands, and paying obeisance according to their age? Now, the issue arises, why she asked such a question? The first Garudharma goes as follows. Even if a bhikkhuni were 100 years ordained, she must show reverence to a bhikkhu ordained even one day by standing up to greet and worshipping with clasped hands. Now she accepted this Garudharma, and then she asked whether we can respect bhikkhus and bhikkhunis according to their age. Such a question as, is it possible to respect bhikkhus and bhikkhunis? The Buddha says, it is not proper for a bhikkhu to show respect to a lay woman by standing up to greet, worshipping with clasped hands, and paying obeisance, and a bhikkhu who does such commits an offense of dukkhata. Now, mark my words, the Buddha refers to a bhikkhu who worships a lay woman. There is no mention of a bhikkhuni. According to this answer, there is no mention of bhikkhunis, whereas the question was as regards how a bhikkhuni could show respect to the elders of the order. Whether a bhikkhu could show such respect to a bhikkhuni is not indicated. Thus the reader is perplexed. The question asked by Mahapajapati remains unanswered even today. I'm asking you, this conference of Buddhist women from all over the world, did the Buddha evade such a question? Not likely. Garudharma and the Vinaya Sikha. Vinaya rules are different from Garudharmas. If we list some of these differences, it would be as follows. Before her ordination, the mode of laying a Vinaya rule. First, for laying a Vinaya rule, a member of the order must first commit an offense. 2. The offense is then reported to the Buddha. 3. The Buddha summons the congregation. 4. The accused is brought before the assembly and is questioned about his wrongful conduct. 5. The accused pleads guilty. 6. The Buddha then addresses the congregation on right conduct and admonishes them. 7. To avoid such misconduct in the future, a rule of discipline is laid down. 8. The first offender is excused. 9. If the rule is too severe, another rule is laid down to mitigate it. 10. A punishment is indicated. 11. Conditions when the rule does not apply are specified. For example, sickness, first offender, insanity, etc. The Garudharmas do not conform to any of these conditions. They were pronounced on Mahapajapati, who was innocent of any such misdeed. Hence, no offense was reported. The Buddha did not summon the congregation to lay down the Garudharmas. No punishment for breaking the Garudharmas is indicated. Were noticed, and the Vinaya rules were laid down that are really these very Garudharmas. One begins to wonder why Vinaya rules that are exactly like the Garudharmas have to be later introduced. Either the Garudharmas were not adhered to or the Garudharmas were never there. Further, these Garudharmas do not belong to the 311 rules of discipline of the Patimokkha, and hence they do not come up for bi-monthly recitation of the Patimokkha. In Sri Lanka, the Garudharmas were not adhered to even in the 3rd century BC. This is very significant. The Venerable Mahinda, son of Emperor, did not adhere to the Garudharma. Our ancient chronicles, Mahavamsa, shows that the first bhikkhunis, Anula and 1,000 others, did not observe the 2 years of probation as Sikkamana, which is one of the 8 conditions stipulated in the Garudharma. They all received ordination after 6 months at the arrival of Sanghamitra. Thus we see that the Garudharmas are not Vinaya rules, neither are they precepts, nor are they in practice. The decline of the Sasana. The Chulavagga describes how, due to the ordination of women, the lifespan of the dispensation will be reduced from 1,000 years to 500 years. It records the statement by the Buddha as follows: Ananda, if this pure, chaste, holy life of the dispensation would have lasted longer. Ananda, however, now that the women have left the household and have been ordained, the lifespan of the Sasana will be reduced from 1,000 years to 500 years. Let us see what the commentary of Chulavagga has to say. The commentary of Chulavagga actually contradicts this statement of the Buddha. The commentator Buddhaghosa leads us to a different world. He says, like a great reservoir, when bounded by a dam, would retain water, in the same way these Garudharmas have been promulgated by the Buddha, so that through the going forth of only 500 years. Now through Garudharma being promulgated, the Saddharma will last another 500 years. Thus it will be 1,000 years. The commentary is diametrically opposed to the text. While the Chulavagga reduces the lifespan from 1,000 years to 500 years, the commentary increases the lifespan from 500 years to 1,000 years. The reader is perplexed as to whether they should believe the text or the commentary or neither. Today we are well over 2,500 years. Buddhaghosa does not agree with the view held in the Chulavagga. There is a reason for this. Buddhaghosa wrote the commentary in the 4th century AD, namely 10 centuries after the demise of the Buddha. And he saw a flourishing bhikkhuni order existing then in Sri Lanka. And it was well after the stipulated time of 500 years or even 1,000 years. Obviously, he had to break away from the Chulavagga and report the current view. So we find not only the Vinaya texts, but also the commentaries reporting in what they mean by the statement that the dispensation would last only 500 years and 1,000 years. I get the answer that it is because Arahant disciples lasted only 500 years. That leaves me in another contrary. Buddhaghosa, in his commentary, however, finally increases the lifespan of the Sasana to 5,000 years. The first 1,000 years, he says, there will be Arahants having 4 analytical knowledges. The next 1,000 years, there will be bare insight arahants. The next 1,000 years will be Sakadagami. The next 1,000 years will be Sotapatti. Thus, for 5,000 years, the Pativeda, namely the penetration of the Dhamma, will be seen. One begins to wonder whether the original statement of the Buddha that the Sasana would last only 500 years due to the ordination of women is really that of the all-knowing Buddha. If it were, then how did Buddha Ghosa contradict the Buddha word? In many instances, the Buddha has specifically mentioned that the causes for the decline of the dispensation are, for example, not keeping Vinaya, not practicing meditation, not gaining jhana, not striving for sainthood, not practicing the 7 factors of enlightenment, and so on. Nowhere, except the Chulavagga, refers to the decline of the dispensation being due to the institution of the Bhikkhuni order. It is highly improbable that the Buddha would have instituted the Bhikkhuni order if it had meant the decline of the dispensation. The Buddha's initial reluctance. When the Buddha first visited Kapilavastu, Mahapajapati Gotami became a Sotapatti. After listening to Maha Dhammapala Jataka, then she went before the Buddha and asked for ordination. Lord, it were well that women should obtain the going forth from home to homelessness in this Dhamma and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata. The Buddha answered, be careful, Gotami, of going forth of women from home to homelessness. Chulavagga records that the Buddha refused admission of women into the order 3 times. But it is significant that in spite of this refusal, Mahapajapati and her retinue donned the yellow robes and walked from Kapilavattu to Vesali and requested ordination. It was going against the wish of the Buddha. Ananda, seeing them, entreated the Buddha to permit the ordination, whereupon the Buddha permitted ordination. I think it is pertinent to point out here that these Sakyan women took a bold step in making this historic march in spite of the Buddha's reluctance. And may I say, convinced the Buddha as well as the traditionally bound Indian society of the 5th century BC by their very honesty of purpose that monastic freedom for women was as essential as for men. The Buddha therefore granted their request. This incident is an eye-opener for us here today. It proves beyond doubt that if the intention is pure, no amount of obstacles could hinder us. Therefore, I stand before you in all humility as witness in person for having become a bhikkhuni in Sri Lanka. But our battle is yet to be won. We need your support in every way. We need to grow in the Dhamma and discipline. And we need to grow in numbers. And we need to prove ourselves to the Theravada countries that ours is a battle won after 10 centuries. So to all of you, I appeal. We are just 1-year-old babies in ordination. We need your advice and approval and support in all the tasks that lie ahead. We need to have a united Bhikkhuni Sangha at an international level, and in that way, to achieve our purpose, women in Buddhism, unity in diversity, and show the world that there are many inaccuracies in Buddhist nuns and women's history. I thank you.
Bhikkhus, Bhikkhunis, friends, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my work with you and also learn from you. This work I'm going to talk about, most of it is based on research conducted in July, August of this year. This sounds very recent, but actually I have learned after coming to the conference that there have been changes in the situation that I'm talking about even since August. So there are things which I would change in this paper. One thing I'd like to point out, there is on page 3 of your paper, I mentioned that the recent ordination, this is about the second full paragraph down, 4 lines, 5 lines down, I mentioned that the recent ordination took place in India under the auspices of Sakyadhita. I stand corrected, it's not under Sakyadhita but the World Sangha Council, so please make that change in the paper. People in Sri Lanka certainly think that it is Sakyadhita who has been responsible for this ordination.
They were behind scenes.
Yeah, but I was corrected by my dear friend
and I said
here.
They were behind scenes.
Yes, they were, well, whatever, but anyway, I should officially say World Sangha Council. Anyway, okay, I'll start, but since this is rather a long paper, I am not going to read everything that's down here. I'm going to skip around a little bit. I hope you will excuse me for that. I think I will probably start around your page 2, somewhere at the bottom. I talk about diversity in this paper, diversity among Buddhist nuns, Dasasilmanyo, Bhikkhunis, well, really Dasasilmanyo, there aren't too many Bhikkhunis in Sri Lanka, Theravada Bhikkhunis. And I look, in the earlier section, I look at diversity of education, background, age, marital status. I'd like to start looking particularly at the diversity in types of ordination. What does this ordination mean in the 10 precepts? There might be at least 4 different ways I have come across for ordaining women in the 10 precepts. One is ordination in what is called Gihi or lay 10 precepts under the tutelage of a senior nun, and this is the most common type of 10 precept ordination in Sri Lanka today. Secondly, there is ordination in monastic or pavidi, pabbaja 10 precepts under the tutelage of a senior nun. And this is seen as being a different type of ordination. The 10 precepts are affirmed together, so breaking one of them means breaking all of them. That's the main difference that is perceived. And this ordination technically has a higher status than the other because it symbolizes a stricter degree of renunciation. It would be considered the equivalent of the Samaneri ordination, according to the nuns I have spoken to there. Probably less than 10% of nuns in the country have this type of ordination. Thirdly, there is ordination, and I haven't come across this very often, but ordination which is supposedly under the tutelage of a Buddhist monk rather than a Buddhist nun, and this is not very common. It is essentially a lay ordination, and the nun who has this type of ordination, she'll wear the saffron robes and her head would be shaven, but it means that she would want to recite the 10 precepts every 2 weeks or so by going back and reaffirming the 10 precepts under the tutelage of a monk. And fourthly, there's a self-ordination. There are some nuns, very few, who have chosen to ordain themselves. In some ways, these different types of ordination are not very important for this reason. the lay people do not recognize a difference. They do not see a difference. For them, someone who looks like a nun is a nun. In practice, this doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is the character of the individual nun. Okay, this is what determines her path, how she is received, rather than the ritual of ordination. This is in the social context. In order to survive, a nun is dependent on the goodwill of lay people. And the ordination is not what seems to be the main issue here for them. However, on the theoretical level, the ordination, there are differences in this ordination. The Gihi ordination is different from the Pavidi ordination. Okay? And of course, then there's the whole issue of the full ordination, the Upasampada. While this Upasampada ordination has yet to take place in Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka itself, there are, as Bhikkhuni Kusuma mentioned, there are 10 women who have been ordained in India. Previous to that, there were women who were Theravada Buddhist women from Sri Lanka who were ordained in Los Angeles. Now, the next part of the paper, I'm going to focus on one particular attempt to train women for the Upasampada ordination in Sri Lanka. There's more than one attempt. There's more than one center where this is being done. One is in Kandy. I don't know much about that one. There's another one in the Dambulla area of Sri Lanka, central, towards the north, but central. Now, the ordination in India last December was very important. It was met with some mixed reactions within Sri Lanka itself. But it was important because it seemed to, and there was a meeting held a couple of months after the ordination ceremony in India, in Sri Lanka, and this meeting involved 200 Dasasilmanyo, 10 precept mothers, nuns, and several monks and interested lay people. Among the latter were also, among the monks and lay people was one important monk from Dambulla, Sumangala, Venerable Sumangala, and a lay person who was an ex-monk, Mr. Raja Dharmapala of the Dharmavedi Institute, an NGO in Sri Lanka. And together, they worked together with several nuns from a government-sponsored organization, an All Lanka Silmata organization. And they worked towards selecting nuns, Dasasilmanyo, for training to be bhikkhunis. Okay? So they founded, in March of 1997, they founded a Sri Lanka Bhikkhuni Reawakening Organization. And they sent out letters to Silmanyo from throughout the country, throughout the country concerning their intentions. The letters said they plan to have education for nuns and to better prepare them for taking the Upasampada. And they sought applications. There were about 200 nuns who responded. A selection committee was formed because it was difficult to start this with 200 Dasasilmanyo. And the selection committee found 80 nuns who they thought met certain criteria. And they were hoping of those 80, after interviewing them, to find around 40 who could enter the training program. Eventually, they interviewed them. They found around 31, but 26 ended up coming for this program. Some of the criteria which they looked at in selecting these nuns. Firstly, age. They were looking for nuns to be between about 30 and 55 years of age, approximately. Secondly, the ordination. They were looking for Silmanyo, nuns who had been ordained for at least 5 years. Thirdly, they looked at education, that the nuns had to have at least 8 O-level passes and either 3 A-level passes or an equivalent in the government-sponsored exams. fourthly, discipline. They had to show some evidence of training in Dhamma and meditation. And they had to have character certificates as well. Okay. Finally, 26 nuns were chosen, and they took up residence in an abandoned meditation retreat near Dambulla. On July 12, 1997, they were given the Samaneri ordination. And the literature to the lay people says that they should not be referred to as Silmanio because they are Samaneris. The training program began that month, and the training program was to last 6 months. So I actually visited it just about a month after it had started, which is very, very recent. The sponsorship for this area was really by the Venerable Sumangala, and he allowed this abandoned meditation retreat to be used entirely by the nuns. It's very nice. It's in the forests, and it's very peaceful. And that their facilities are still being improved, but it's a very lovely place to be. The training program is very rigorous. Well, for me, waking up at 4:30 is not very easy, but they wake up at 4:30, and I have laid this out, but I won't go into detail. But they have a full day of classes. And I attended some of these, I attended the classes. They have classes in the morning as well as in the afternoon. It's a full session. In the morning session that I attended, there was a learned bhikkhu who came as a volunteer to discuss the Pali text with them, the Pali Suttas. And he sat on a mat. The training took place in a sort of attached, very temporary looking building. He sat on a mat at the same level as the Samaneris, and the discussion that day was on the Satipatthana Sutta. The nuns took, the Samaneris took dictation in Pali and Sinhala, and something I noticed about the monk, the bhikkhu, is that he was using inclusive language. Although the Pali text talks about the meditator as a he, the monk kept saying he or she. He said I later talked to him about it, and he said, well, yes, he was doing that very purposely. He also spoke from his personal experience about meditation and the authority structure in meditation centers. And he reminded the Samaneris that ultimately one should give highest authority to the teachings of the Buddha, rather than to meditation instructors. He said that meditation centers had a certain structure of authority that could not be accepted unquestioningly. Okay, now, I think this is very important because sometimes one can just accept what is. The afternoon session with the bhikkhu focused on the Vasetta Sutta and the discussion of the irrelevance of caste in Buddhism. And the second session in the afternoon was led by a layperson who looked at the Bhikkhuni Khandaka and was discussing the Upasampada ritual that was going to happen shortly. There were a lot of discussions about the ordination ritual there. The teachers who are teaching there have very much been influenced by engaged Buddhism. And it is their intention to help in the creation of a socially engaged Buddhism with a small b rather than a big B. And this is clearly reflected in their curriculum. The curriculum itself, I'll talk a little bit about it. They look at standard Pali texts, suttas, sections from the Vinaya. There's special attention given to texts concerning issues of gender, bhikkhunis, women. Okay? They look at the history of the Shasana, its spread from India, Asoka's time, and they look at the heritage of the bhikkhunis to the world. Okay? Also, very importantly, they look at they study the history of Buddhism and the 10 precept, the Dasasilmanyo, 10 precept mothers, the nuns in Sri Lanka itself. They all know about the first Sudharmachari Manyo, the first nun in Dasasilmanyo in Sri Lanka, and can relate to her story. There is an attempt also to teach them English. Now, on completion, conferred on those who met the required standard. At the time of my visit in August 1997, no specific date for the higher ordination had been set, although approximately they said December, January. And I think they were planning then to have the ordination in Sri Lanka. And they showed me the place. They showed me the Seema, that where it would be. I'm hearing now in the conference that perhaps that has changed, that the ordination might not be in Sri Lanka itself. I spoke to Venerable Sumangala, and he was very optimistic. He said that in Sri Lanka there are many people who speak very publicly against the Upasampada, but he felt that there were many more who were supportive of the Upasampada for women, but that these people just did not speak about it. He felt that at the ordination, which he thought was he was thinking would be in Sri Lanka, he said that there would be several hundred monks, bhikkhus, there present. Venerable Sumangala is a little bit of a controversial figure in Sri Lanka because he has broken away, well, some would argue that he has broken away from the Asgiriya, the chapter which he belonged to, and established a different chapter, a Dambulla chapter. And there's a little bit of some tension there, which some might even use as a way of saying, well, what right does he have to train women and confer a higher ordination? But he was not too troubled by that at all, because he felt there was a lot of support amongst bhikkhus in Sri Lanka. The argument at the Dambulla Center, first of all, he said that 5 is a minimum number of bhikkhus to be present at the ordination of bhikkhunis. And he said there would be many more. How would the ordination be carried out? This is a big question. Where does the tradition, where is the lineage? Well, he looks at a passage from the Bhikkhuni Khandaka, which says that the bhikkhus have the right to ordain women. There is a passage there. That's what they take as their authority, that bhikkhus can ordain bhikkhunis. Okay? Venerable Sumangala feels, well, at that time when I spoke to him again, he felt very strongly that a bhikkhuni ordination to really take root in Sri Lanka has to be done in such a way that a woman who is born in Sri Lanka, who is trained and ordained in Sri Lanka, can really bring the ordination in and establish it in Sri Lanka. And he referred to Mahinda has also said something like that about monks in the 3rd century BCE. What is the main benefit of the ordination? There's a lot of discussion about ordination. Why the ordination? Well, according to Venerable Sumangala, a main benefit is that of status and respect, that women will have a new status and respect which they don't all have. And partly because I didn't mention it today, but it's in my paper, I talk about the diversity amongst many women. Some of them, some of the Silmanu are treated as beggars. Some of them are not, and that gives them all a bad name. So there's a problem here. If there is more unity and they have a status, then it is easier for them to live and to be to do their social and religious work. So Venerable Sumangala said a lot of issues that they are worried about too, that the status might be perhaps abused, that the bhikkhunis might become like, as I was told, some bhikkhus who enjoy owning television sets and cars. You know, this is a big issue in Sri Lanka for some. So there's a concern that with the new status, there would be an abuse of privilege. They've tried to take some steps to prevent this by having an additional code. Apart from the Vinaya code, they want the bhikkhunis to follow another code as well, which they are preparing. Now, the current arrangement in Dambulla, as I visited in August, has several advantages. What are they? Firstly, the leading nuns of the organization are also nuns who have been very active in the All Sri Lanka Silmata organization. Okay, they are nationally known. and they have been accepted as national representatives of nuns in Lanka. Okay. Secondly, the organization has been careful to maintain a grassroots level contact, the grassroots level contact of the nuns. For example, the nuns often go during weekends to visit their home hermitages and attend to matters that would normally occupy them there. So they're not cut off from their home hermitages. Additionally, and I think this is very important, the daily alms for the Dambulla retreat are brought directly from lay donors who come from the regions of the home hermitages, traveling by bus or truck. It's a day's travel in the hot sun. It's very uncomfortable. They often stay overnight. They cook and they serve, and the following day they will return to their villages. Now, this is important because apart from ensuring an adequate supply of alms for those at Dambulla, it has the effect of both encouraging the lay donors to support the cause of the fully ordained nun in Sri Lanka, and it also provides a way of educating the lay donors and indirectly the villages where they come from, okay, that this is happening, that there is a center, there is a training program, and these people, the nuns will eventually, they will need continued support. Okay. There is another advantage in the system in Dambulla is that as far as I knew at that time, the teachers who are teaching the nuns are all unpaid, supportive volunteers. They do it because they want to do it. I've heard sometimes at another training center where it can be very difficult because the teachers are wanting to be paid a lot. Okay, so this is not the case here. Now, just to conclude here, assuming that a successful higher ordination takes place and wins acceptance within Sri Lanka, that's very important. The ordination in India has won some acceptance, but there's a sense that within Sri Lanka it's important too. What will happen is that bhikkhunis will coexist with Silmatas. Bhikkhunis will coexist with the 10 precept mothers. This might be viewed as a strength because in this context, women will have more options to choose the type of renunciation that they wish to follow. However, it will take time before lay people who support nuns observe a difference in behavior in relating to 10 precept mothers and bhikkhunis, because they are seen as, they don't understand that difference, not quite, I think, at the moment, and just by seeing it would be difficult. Arguably, urban educated and elite women who might have been discouraged from renouncing as 10 precept mothers as Silmanu because of the possible loss of status and the hardship entailed might soon have the option of renouncing as bhikkhunis without that concern. Okay. Secondly, the separate attempts to confer the Upasampada on Theravada Buddhist women from Sri Lanka will need to be seen in terms of cooperation rather than competition, if the Bhikkhuni Sasana is to avoid the sectarian differences that have arisen among the fully ordained bhikkhus in Sri Lanka. So let's hope that among all this diversity there can be unity and we can establish a strong Bhikkhuni ordination in Sri Lanka. Thank
you. Bhikkhunis and Dhamma friends, this is my first time to participate international conference. I never been. Well, today I would like to briefly introduce about myself and our nunnery in Kathmandu, and also the activities which we organize. So when 16 years ago, I became a nun as a 9 years or younger. After that, I studied Dhamma in temple. Besides the Dhamma study, I go to the government school as a ordinary children. And my Dhamma teacher as a Bhikkhuni Dhammavati is also participating at this conference. And she has been studying in Burma for 14 years. So she realized that in Nepal, as a Theravada nun, we have to study in school also. Not enough. Without the school education, we cannot preach in Nepal, because in Nepal we have two kinds of language. So we are from the Nepali family. So in temple, most of the Nepali people, they participate in our temple. If you want to preach Dhamma for the villages or other city, we have to learn the Nepali language. So to learn the Nepali language, we go to the school. and also she realized that the education is very important to preach the Dhamma. And also in temple, now we have 35 nuns, and some of nuns are studying overseas. And mostly we are depending on devotees. Those devotees come to our temple once a week. Once a week we have Dhamma activities for the old lay people, and on that activities we do the puja. After puja, we preach the Dhamma for them. Especially in those days, the lay people who came to our temple, they donate some amounts of money for each nuns who are attending the puja, and also they donate some rice for us, and also they invited us for lunch when they have a special ceremony like a birthday, weddings, and many other occasions. And also, besides that, we organize many activities in our temple. We preach Dhamma for the lay people for once a week, and also we teach Dhamma on every Saturday for the youth who are graduate from college and also the graduate from school. And also we have a winter classes for the young children. The young children, they just join during their winter vacation. And once a year we organize blood donation, health camp in remote area, and also a temporary ordination for lay people. Some of our devotees, they want to know the monastic life, so we organize the temporary ordination for the lay people, and that ordination, during that ordination we teach meditation, preach Dhamma. And also, we publish books and magazines. And I got a higher ordination in Taiwan, 1993. Before got a high ordination in 1991, I got a seminary ordination in United States, and four of nuns are joined in United States for the high ordination. Except me, because that time I am not over 20. To attend the ordination, we should be over 20. So in 1993, I got a high ordination. 1991, I got a high ordination in Taiwan according to the Dhamma Vinaya. And even as we are bhikkhuni in Nepal, the monks do not accept us as a bhikkhuni. So we have to live as a 10 precept nun instead of bhikkhuni. Still, some of monks against for bhikkhuni order, so we Theravada nuns are struggling for monks for our rights. And for recently, in China, they also have a ordination ceremony, high ordination ceremony from our temple. The 5 nuns are attending that ceremony. And also in our temple, we train younger nuns. So we give the education to Buddhist education and also the general educations since in Nepal we don't have a special school for nuns. So the younger nuns, they go to the school for their education. Some of them are still right now we have 7 nuns. They go to the school every day. So some of them are 8th grade, 6th grade, and 5 and 4 grades. So beside that school education, they have to study in temple also. So we have now January we have a Buddhist exam for them. And even I am also studying government college in Nepal. So we have to pay, in school we have to pay a school fee. It's not free for us. Even we study in government school, it's not free. We have to pay fee for ourselves. Some of nuns, they have devotees to help them. For myself, I had to pay by myself. I start to teach the Buddhism once a week, twice a week, as they wish. And we are doing a lot of social services and also try hard to study Dhamma. Some of Nepali nuns had gone Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, and Taiwan for study. For myself also, I went to Taiwan for study the Taiwanese tradition of language and also the Dhammagutta Vinaya. So in future, we hope that we can ordain a lot of more nuns, and also in future we are planning to train a young nuns more and more to propagate the Dhamma. And also on February this year, 15 to 23, more than 10 nuns are going to take a high ordination in Buddha Gaya. So when they come back to Nepal for ordained nuns, we hope it will be trained to propagate the Dhamma in Nepal. Thank you.